It came with fury, winds so fierce they tore through homes, uprooted trees, and plunged an entire island into darkness. Cyclone Garance slammed into La Réunion with an intensity rarely seen, battering the French Indian Ocean territory with 230 kilometers per hour winds, relentless torrential rains, and waves towering 8 meters high. The destruction was immediate. Roofs were ripped away, streets disappeared under raging floodwaters, and entire communities found themselves cut off, without power, water, or communication. Residents who had hunkered down in their homes could only listen in fear as the storm raged outside, breaking windows, tearing down walls, and turning once familiar streets into apocalyptic landscapes. But just as La Réunion began to take stock of the devastation, another disaster unfolded. Flash floods, triggered by the cyclone's unrelenting downpour, swept through towns, swallowing roads, homes, and anything in their path. Streets turned into raging rivers, cars were washed away like toys, and families fought to escape the rising waters.
99 11 00. Freedom, bonjour.
Allô?
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour,
For many, Garance wasn't just a cyclone. It was a nightmare that refused to end. For hours, the 900,000 residents of La Réunion endured nature's wrath. The cyclone's arrival was swift and brutal, leaving little time to react. By the time the worst had passed, the damage was staggering. 180,000 households left without electricity, 80,000 people with no access to clean water, 114,000 residents cut off from mobile phone coverage. Emergency services were overwhelmed as distress calls poured in. Reports of collapsed buildings, stranded residents, and missing persons surged as the storm carved a path of destruction across the island.
Là, ça souffle, hein. Allez, c'est parti, hein. Oh là là là.
Even as the winds began to ease, the danger remained. Heavy rains continued, triggering flash floods and landslides that further battered the already devastated island. Authorities warned that unstable slopes, swollen rivers, and damaged infrastructure meant the crisis was far from over. Beyond the wreckage, the human toll was devastating. In one harrowing incident, a woman in her 50s was believed to have been sucked into a sewer pipe, swept away by the sheer force of the raging floodwaters. Rescuers searched desperately, but hopes of finding her alive faded with each passing hour. Elsewhere, a man lost his life in an electrical fire, sparked by the cyclone's violent destruction of power lines. One person remained missing, feared lost in the chaos. For survivors, the destruction was almost too much to comprehend. I watched my car being overturned by the torrent, and there was nothing I could do, said Adrian, a resident of Saint-André, who could only stand by helplessly as his vehicle was swept away by the floodwaters. In Sainte-Marie, Vincent Clan described his terror as the cyclone unleashed its fury on his home. "This is the first time I've seen a cyclone this powerful, and also the first time I've been afraid," he admitted. Klein, his wife, their son, and even their dog huddled together in the kitchen, the safest part of their house, as winds roared outside and trees crashed to the ground. Others, like Aline Ethive, feared their homes wouldn't survive the storm. "I must admit I'm a little scared," she said, as the wind tore apart her garden fence and she lost power and Wi-Fi, leaving her completely cut off from the outside world.
Oui, je commence à sortir. Oui. Hey.
In the hours leading up to Garance's landfall, authorities rushed to evacuate those in danger. Nearly 700 people were moved to emergency shelters, a decision that likely saved lives as the storm battered the island. With La Réunion in crisis, France mobilized 100 troops and firefighters from Mayotte, nearly 1,500 kilometers away, with another 100 emergency responders dispatched from mainland France. But help was not just needed in La Réunion. Mauritius, located 225 kilometers to the northeast, was also battered by the storm. Authorities shut down the main airport, and thousands hunkered down as Garance lashed the island.
I got it.
In the capital of Saint-Denis, residents scrambled to stock up on supplies before the worst of the storm hit. Farmers dismantled greenhouses in an effort to save their crops. Fishermen pulled their boats onto land, knowing the sea would be unforgiving. Despite their best efforts, few were truly prepared for what was coming. Marie-Rose Gaze, 61, recounted the chaos she witnessed outside her home. "I saw all kinds of things being blown out of a building across from me. Satellite dishes, clotheslines, even chunks of cement," she said. At one point she feared the entire building would come crashing down. As Cyclone Garance moved away from La Réunion, it left behind a trail of destruction. Entire neighborhoods were left unrecognizable. Roads were washed away, bridges collapsed. The island's power grid was crippled, and thousands remained trapped in their homes, unable to call for help. Flash flooding continued to wreak havoc, delaying rescue operations and making it nearly impossible for aid workers to reach some of the hardest-hit areas. Authorities raced against time to restore basic services. Emergency teams worked around the clock to repair power lines. Water purification efforts were launched to prevent disease outbreaks. The search for the missing continued, with hopes fading by the hour. French officials, including Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau, called Garance a storm of rare intensity and vowed to assist in rebuilding efforts. But for many, recovery felt like an impossible task. The scars left by Garance will take months, if not years, to heal. And as climate change fuels stronger, deadlier storms, residents of La Réunion are left with a terrifying question. Will the next one be even worse? Cyclone Garance is just the latest in a series of extreme weather disasters devastating the world. As storms become stronger, more frequent, and more destructive, one crucial question remains. Are we truly prepared for what's coming next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think climate change is making storms worse? What should governments do to protect people from disasters like this?